I listened for the first time. For the first time,
You have found why we are Christians. My name is Kent Philpott, and we're in the process of interviewing Dr. Robert L. Hymers, Jr., pastor of the Baptist Tabernacle in Los Angeles. This is part 2 of the program, and we're just getting into the story about how Dr. Hymers became a born-again Christian. Bob, here we are again, part 2. Now,
yep.
Now the story is you had this experience where at a funeral you became aware of the actual presence of God. Now let's pick it up from right there, Bob.
I want to take it back just a little bit before that.
Okay.
A little kid living on Fargo Street in downtown Los Angeles in the Echo Park district. Everybody was drunk. Everybody was weird. They were breaking windows, screaming. And I would retreat to one of two places, either to the basement where there were paintings of angels in the Catholic tradition, or I would go down the hill, Fargo Street, to the bottom of the hill where there was a Catholic church, and I would go into that Catholic church just to be quiet. I'm talking about I was 7, 8 years old. And in that church, there was a life-size statue of Jesus with blood running down his face from the crown of thorns on his head and the cross on his back. And I would sit there, 7, 8-year-old boy, and I would look at that life-size crucifix, and I would think, why did they do that to him? Why? And I thought, well, it's because they were angry with him and his enemies killed him. So I had that impression of Christ dying a bloody death, but I didn't know why. And later in the Baptist church, I brought the same ideas of Catholicism with me. And that was, you have to be real good, you have to be perfect, you have to dedicate your life, rededicate your life, rededicate your life, then you'll be a Christian. So that was my feeling. But after I had that experience in the funeral, where God became so terribly real to me, I was under conviction a lot of the time. That means I'd have nightmares about hell. I would have feelings of insecurity and sinfulness. I thought, that's what I need to do. I need to give up. I'd been in all these plays and all these speech contests and all these this acting business. I thought, that's rubbish. It's worthless. I'll get rid of the theater and become a medical missionary like Dr. Tom Dooley was in Vietnam. We're talking the late 1950s. So I then read a book about Dr. James Hudson Taylor, who was a medical missionary to the inland China in the late 19th century. And that made me even more interested. So one night I was walking around downtown LA. I didn't have a car yet. I was walking through downtown Los Angeles. I walked around Pershing Square, and I walked around the old plaza, Alvera Street. I walked up to Chinatown, through Chinatown, on Yale Street. I turned to the right, and there in the dark, about 9:30, 10 o'clock at night, I saw a sign that said First Chinese Baptist Church. I went up and knocked on the door. The lady pianist, opened the door, and I think she was kind of scared of me because, I was a white guy in a Chinese church, and I had a big black beard, which I'd grown at the time, the only time I ever had a beard. And I think she was a little bit scared, but she invited me to come back the next morning at 10:30, I think it was, for the church service. So I went home to my apartment and to the room I was staying in, and I shaved off the beard. I put on my suit, that I had worn at the Baptist church earlier in Huntington Park, the white church. And I went to the first Chinese Baptist church.
Was
Now,
Dr. Lin the pastor then at that period?
no, there was no pastor. There was about 75 people, and it was without a pastor. And it was all Chinese people. I was the only white boy. I was 19 years old at that time. And there was one other white guy, but he was in his 30s, and an older man. And I went there, and it was very fascinating. I remember I went to a funeral about the first or second week I was there, and the man had been a wealthy Chinese man at his funeral in the church. They did some things in the funeral that I never saw in a white church. And then we had a banquet afterwards. I went to the banquet, sat down to eat, and they served these big black mushrooms. And I put one of them in my mouth. I'd never eaten Chinese food, never eaten it in my life. Put this big black mushroom in my mouth and started chewing it, chewing it, chewing it. It got bigger, bigger, bigger. But I can't swallow this thing. So I went to the bathroom, spit it out, and then came back to the banquet, sat down, and I thought, I'm going to be a missionary to the Chinese. And I ate everything on the plate except the other black mushrooms. And after that, I was going to the church. They called several men to be pastors, and they didn't want to come. They called Dr. Timothy Lin. Now, Dr. Timothy Lin had been was an Old Testament scholar, PhD from Dropsy University, as it once was, and strictly rabbinical school. So he knew all about Hebrew and Syriac, Peshitic, everything, and taught that at Bob Jones University in the graduate department. Well, he left Bob Jones, came to our church, and actually became the interim pastor. We thought, a little tiny church like this great professor of Old Testament would come to be the assistant, the interim pastor. Well, as he went along preaching, it was another interesting thing was he never spoke the language of the people. He couldn't, because the people were Cantonese speaking, and Dr. Lin was Mandarin speaking from the north of China. I never heard him preach in Chinese. He always preached in English with a Cantonese translator, sometimes with a Mandarin translator as well. I never heard him preach one time in English that I can remember. And so he was preaching along, and I thought, I've got to go to Bible school to be a missionary, and then I'll be saved. Still thinking like a Catholic. So I went to Biola College, then Biola University, now Bible Institute of Los Angeles, Biola University. And there on September the 28th, 1961, in the chapel, in the morning chapel, they had a series of chapel services every day for 1 week in the religious emphasis. And the speaker was Dr. Charles Woodbridge, who had just left Fuller Seminary.
Now, excuse me, Bob, you said Dr. Charles Woodbridge?
Dr. Charles J. Woodbridge.
Okay, good. Okay, that's what I thought.
His son is John Woodbridge, who teaches at Deerfield, in the seminary there at Deerfield, Illinois. And Dr. Woodbridge had been a graduate of Princeton University and taught there at Princeton church history. Now, when he saw liberalism in the theological department at Princeton, he left Princeton with J. Gresham Machen, and they went to start a conservative seminary called, what was it called? Westminster Theological Seminary, and Dr.
Right.
Woodbridge taught there. Later he came to Fuller Seminary when it was founded, but then he saw the same thing happening at Fuller, that they were becoming weak on the inspiration of the Bible and the inerrancy of the Bible. And so he left Fuller. And this is about a year or two before I heard him speak. He was speaking on 1st and 2nd Peter. Had a lot to say about false prophets. And of course, he had a lot to say about liberalism in the seminaries and so forth. And the other thing that was quite interesting to me is that he had been born in China on the mission field. His parents were missionaries. So I was listening to him. I mean, I was listening. I couldn't take my eyes off. And he was a very interesting speaker. church history man. And he's preaching in 2 Peter chapter 3, the day I got saved. And he's talking about the end of the world, the day of the Lord, and the elements passing away with a fervent heat. And then he's talking about looking, he said, nevertheless we, according to his mercy, look for new heavens and a new earth wherein dwelleth righteousness. 2 Peter 3:13. Now, when he was talking about the end of the world and the burning of the universe in fire, and Robert Frost said, some say the world will end in fire, some say in ice. What I've known of desire, I hold with those who favor fire. Robert Frost is a great poet. And of course, the Bible favors fire. The scientists tell us it's going to burn out into cold. The Bible tells us it's going to burn out into fire. I don't understand that. I don't know how it's going to work, but I believe it because it's in the Word of God, and that's the way the universe will end. Talking about the end of the universe and burning with fire, we were very scared back then in '62 still of nuclear war. That was very much in the front of our minds as young people. With the Vietnam War, with the Bay of Pigs, we were afraid that we were going to be bombed by Russia, by the Soviet Union, with atomic weapons. So this made a very interesting thing out of this to me. And when he said, this is how to be saved, trust Jesus, I listened for the first time. For the first time, I actually listened to the presentation of the gospel. And then we sang that beautiful song by Charles Wesley, and can it be that I should gain an interest in the Savior's blood? Died he for me, who knew no pain, no sin, for me, who him to death pursued. Amazing love, how can it be that thou, my God, should die for me? Amazing love, how can it be that thou, my God, should die for me? I never thought about Jesus as God. Never thought of him as the second person of the Trinity. A new thought. We sang that song every morning, all week long, and I would sing it outside. Oh, what a lovely song. Amazing love, how can it be that thou, my God, should die for me?
Bob, that's the Charles Wesley song, isn't it? And can it be? Charles Wesley. Yes.
And can it be? Wonderful. I'd never heard it before. We didn't sing it in the Baptist church. It's a Methodist song, early Methodist song. So I'm sitting there in the chair. I'm sitting beside Murphy Lum, who was the Sunday school superintendent at the Baptist at the Chinese church, and he was studying for a Master of Divinity. I was sitting beside him, and I trusted Jesus. So simple. All of that time, I've been trying to save myself by being good, by forcing myself to preach. I preach on the street. I preach in jail. I've been preaching since I was 17 to 18, 2 years, 2.5, 20, 21. About almost 4 years I've been preaching everywhere I could, on the street, in the jails, in some Baptist churches. And but I was preaching duty, out of duty. You've got to do this or you won't be saved. That day I trusted Jesus, and his blood cleansed me of all my sin right then in the chair, not going forward. I'd gone forward 100 times in the Baptist church. I rededicated my life. I dedicated my life. I rededicated my life. I dedicated my life. Didn't do any good. I was still consumed with the thought of being a sinner. But when I trusted Jesus, his blood cleansed me. I knew that he had saved me. I went out of that auditorium at Biola, singing the last part of that song. Amazing love, how can it be that thou, my God, should die for me? Then I got a hymn book so I could sing the whole hymn. I was working on a parking lot in downtown Los Angeles in the afternoons. And I would go to the parking lot, open the hymn book, sing the song over and over and over. And that has been the theme of my preaching all through these years. The theme of my preaching, as you can see if you look at our website is www.sermons, plural, sermons with an S on the end, sermonsfortheworld.com.
Now, here you are, you're genuinely born again. You have this experience. Finally, the Holy Spirit reveals Jesus to you in that powerful way. Now, you had been baptized earlier. Hadn't you been baptized earlier?
Oh yeah, I was baptized. I was baptized at the at the First Baptist Church of Huntington Park, and then after I was saved, Dr. Lin baptized me in the Chinese Baptist Church.
Okay, no. After this experience, then you
That
were
was scripture baptism.
so
You're supposed to be saved first, then baptized.
yeah, yeah.
So that's
Well,
what happened.
so
I was baptized.
you were baptized after this conversion experience.
Yes, yes,
Okay.
yes.
Okay. And Dr. Lin baptized you at
Dr.
First
Lin.
Chinese Baptist Church in Los Angeles. Okay.
Right.
I always bring up baptism because not because I'm a Baptist, but because it's the normal thing to do as a Christian. Once you're converted, then
Amen.
then we're to be baptized in the name of the Father, the Son. You're at now the First Chinese Baptist Church, and you were just saying that you had done a lot of preaching. Were you a street preacher?
Oh, I was definitely a street preacher. Because of John Wesley, I was preaching on a street every single day, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Then I would preach in the Chinese church on Friday night, to the little boys in the Royal Ambassadors Boys Club. And then Saturday, I would study all day because I was going to college at night by now. And then I would go down to the church about 7 o'clock at night and clean the pews. Dr. Lin was always there sweeping in the street, a very good pastor. And I would clean the pews.
I met him.
And put in
one day I met him. You took me one day to the First Chinese Baptist Church there, and we went into Dr. Lin's office, and I got to say hello to him. And I remember he always called you Bope. He had a hard time with Bob.
Yeah, because he was Czech.
He would call you Bope.
Well, you have a hard time too, huh? He was my friend.
You got a picture of him there?
Him up there. This is at his 90th birthday party. He's 90 years old here, and big birthday party, hundreds of people there. And I sat at the head table with him, and he then we stood up and made this picture. And he was my great mentor. He was my professor, my teacher. He taught me how to outline a sermon. He told me, our Bob has the gift of an evangelist.
Bob, you know,
you've got the evangelistic meetings.
You've got your Billy Graham smile there on that picture. I don't know if you know that. Anyway, good. Thank you, Bob, for that, showing that. That's sort of the Billy Graham
And he
smile.
would tell me, why we have Southern Baptist preachers? Our Bob is evangelist. So I preach all the evangelistic meetings there.
Sure. So
after that.
Now, let's move ahead a little bit. I want to talk about your education. You showed up in Mill Valley, California, up where I live, and you became a student at Golden Gate Baptist Theological Seminary. Now, how did you get there?
The way I got up to Golden Gate Baptist Theological Seminary was that I couldn't afford Talbot Seminary.
Okay.
Because I was on my own. I had no help from my parents. I had no help from anybody else. And I had saved and worked and saved and worked and saved and worked. And I had a lot of money saved up. I had the retirement. I'd worked for the state of California for many years. I had a lot of retirement there. I lived in a room for several years on Skid Row in downtown Los Angeles to save money. And so I had thousands of dollars saved up. And enough for Golden Gate for about 2 years, but not enough for Talbot, where it was very much more expensive. I wanted to go to Talbot, but I couldn't afford it, so I went to Golden Gate. I knew it was liberal when I went, but I didn't know. Dr. Lin said, "Go ahead, Bob. You know what to believe." And I did. "It won't hurt you," he said. It didn't hurt me, but it almost killed me.
I remember meeting you. You had friends. They were Mike Riley and Roger Hoffman. And
Roger Hoffman, yes.
And they kept wanting me to meet you. And so finally one day I met you.
I wanted to meet you too.
Yeah, and we all got involved together. We started doing ministry together. And you were part of our Christian houses. You lived in one, I remember you and a bunch of guys lived down in an apartment in San Anselmo for a while. And you were in a Christian house up in Lucas Valley in Marin County, part of San Rafael. And what I remember about you was everybody loved to hear you preach. Everybody wanted to hear you preach. And here we are, you're with a bunch of Jesus people and hippie types, but you've got on a black suit, a white shirt, a black tie, and sometimes you would wear your hat, a fedora, and your
American flag.
Your American flag.
American flag.
And you preached.
A Republican.
You preached Jesus, and sometimes Nixon. And one of your favorite guys was Winston Churchill.
I didn't preach Nixon, but I defended it.
I know. I'm just having fun with you, Bob. We would go down to North Beach, and you would stand on the street corners and preach with your black suit.
Sure, of course. And I remember preaching under the sign of the Garden of Eden. There was a striptease joint.
Yes.
And they had a tree, and then the woman eating the fruit. And it's the same place that Moish Rosen and Jews for Jesus went. And I preached there every Friday night, a lot of times every Friday and Saturday. I don't know why I chose. It was the most dirty place on North Beach. The whole thing was dirty, but the Garden of Eden was the worst.
I was there
just. Chose to preach.
I was there.
I got one convert.
What, Bob?
I got one convert there.
Did you?
I got one convert. Okay. Oh yeah, good one.
Now, Bob, hold it a minute. I was just there. I got a picture of, it's still there, that Garden of Eden. And one day we did a big demonstration there. One night, Moish Rosen was there. Moish was there. We had a couple of hundred of us out there. And the guy that owned the place come up and punched me in the face. I lost my glasses. I hit him. We got in a big fight. The cops took us both down to the the police station, North Beach Station. We ended up saying, okay, it's mutual combat. The cops let us both go. I came back to the demonstration. And we did that sort of thing. That was a Jesus People movement. And we had more fun than we ought to have had, probably. And I remember you in that period of time. And we saw many conversions. Many people came to know the Lord. And it was a high and exciting time for us all. And
it was.
One of the things that I always appreciated about you is that you kept a lid on our wild Pentecostal tendencies.
I don't know about that.
Well, you did.
I don't know about
you
that,
did.
I enjoyed being with the young people.
Yes.
I enjoyed being with the young people. And I didn't care they were hippies or not. So what? As long as they were wanting to be Christians. And I enjoyed thoroughly being with them for the first part of it, yes. And until I finally came down here to start another church. But I very much enjoyed preaching on the street, preaching teaching the Bible, preaching to the kids, starting the Church of the Open Door.
And the
all of
kids,
that was great stuff.
And the kids loved you. And we had Bible studies in high schools. We had Christian houses all over the place. And eventually, we started a church. Church of the Open Door, still going. And then you went down to Los Angeles. And in a little while, we're going to pick up, because in the next program, Bob, we have to do another program, because I want everybody to know what you're doing now. what you're doing now, some of the books you've been writing, your vast ministry that stretches all over the world. We've got to get that. We've got to get that. We're going to focus on that in the next program. Because we've lost this Skype, most people don't know it, viewers don't know, we lost Skype twice in the middle of this segment. So we're going to keep going a little bit farther than when this clock runs out on the teleprompter. So we've got you in Marin County at Golden Gate Baptist Theological Seminary. I graduated from there. You graduated from there. I want you to, in about the next minute and a half, would you please, Bob, run down, you went on to other schools, you have other degrees. Would you tell us about, quickly, schools and the degrees you got from other schools?
After I left Marin, I went to the California Graduate School of Theology for a year. I got a Doctor of Religion degree. Interestingly enough, some of the best stuff I learned was from the California Graduate School. They had great preachers coming in like Jerry Falwell, Dr. W.A. Criswell, and I learned a lot from those preachers. And then I went from the California Graduate School, I went to the San Francisco Theological Seminary, United Presbyterian. I did a Doctor of Ministry there. That was very interesting. They liked me. At Golden Gate, I was thought of as a fundamentalist because I was defending the Bible. But at San Francisco Theological Seminary, United Presbyterian, I was accepted, said, here's a witch, here's a communist, here's an atheist, and here's Dr. Hymers, and he's a fundamentalist. So I was received just as one of the oddballs that went there. I got a Doctor of Ministry there, and I learned a lot. One of the professors there helped me a lot.
I went to the same school, to the same degree. You were there at my graduation, I remember.
Right. And you were there at my graduation.
Yes, that's right. We've been funny. We've kept track of each other. Now, after that, did you get any other degrees? Seemed like there was one more.
Oh, no, there were two more. I came to Los Angeles, and then I wanted to do a conservative degree, so I did a Doctor of Theology degree at the Louisiana Baptist Theological Seminary.
That's one I remember, yeah.
And then they gave me a Doctor of Literature, an honorary Doctor of Literature, LITTD, at the Louisiana Baptist University. So I have those two degrees. One is an honorary, the other one is an earned degree. I wrote The Ruckman Conspiracy about Ruckmanism, which is a teaching among fundamental Baptists.
I remember that.
Some of them believe that the Bible, the King James Bible, the words are inspired. So I wrote a book against that, and that was my PhD program.
Right. I remember we wrote a book together. It was called The Deliverance Book. Bible Voice, George Otis in Los Angeles published that book, and we did that to keep people from coming from all over the country to Marin County so that we could cast demons out of them.
Yeah, that's right.
We were inundated. Now, all right, we're going to call this conclusion to this program, and this has been going to be the end of our second program with Dr. Robert L. Hymers, Jr. All right, until next time, so long.